Hi everyone, today we're going to be looking at Rusbult's model of investment, and this is another economic theory of why we maintain a relationship. So Rusbult basically identified that there were three factors that affected how committed we are in a relationship, and these three factors had either positively correlated or negatively correlated with commitment to relationships. What's important to remember as we go through it is that it is still an economic model. So it's still going to talk about profits or benefits and costs. So make sure that you're identifying always what are the profits and the costs in this example. So the first one is comparison level for alternatives. Now we've already gone through this when we were looking at other theories, but we need to know it in relation to Rusbult's. And it hasn't changed really. It's just the idea that an individual assesses whether their needs might be better fulfilled by someone else than their current partner. So is there someone else better out there for us than the person that we're with? And sometimes that's another person, or like we said before, sometimes that can just be being on your own would be better than being with the person that you're currently with. Satisfaction level is the second one, and this is about how satisfied we are in a relationship. And we don't want to use satisfied because obviously we're not really defining the term by saying satisfied. So we're going to say like gratifies a person's needs. And so sometimes we have positive or negative emotions experienced in a relationship. And what we want to make sure is that our satisfaction level is higher than our losses that we're getting. So basically, again, we're talking about profits and costs here, but they refer to it as being satisfied. And that might mean that you're satisfied with the amount of work or effort that you're putting into it, you're satisfied with the amount of compliments that you're receiving, or the way that you feel. And the third one is investment size. So this is the idea that we do put a lot into relationships. So what we put in must be lower than what we're getting out of it. Again, profits and costs. So the investment size basically says that we put a lot of things in, like we have children together, we might buy a house together, we might have the same friendship group, and therefore these are all investments. We're investing in this relationship, because if we decide to split up, then we might divide up the children between time that we get to spend with them. We might have to sell our house and move into a smaller house. We might lose some of our friends. So these are all investments that we put in, with the risks that if something might happen, then we might lose some of those things. So the more we feel like these investments are worth it, the more likely we are to stay together. And the larger the investment size, basically, the more likely we are to stay together. So the more of these things that you have, so that if you have children and a house and loads of shared friends, then you're more likely to stay together, because it's more risky leaving and you're losing a lot more. So Rusbult conducted a study to provide evidence for her theory. And she basically asked people to read a story about Sarah and Robert, and sometimes they had high or low cost relationships, sometimes they had high or low investment size, sometimes they had high or low satisfaction level. So they had all these different factors. And what they found was, if the investment size was high, i.e. we put a lot into it, then we were more committed. We said that they were more likely to stay together. If, however, the alternatives were low and there was also there's no one else out there as well, then we were even more committed. And if the commitment level, if the satisfaction level was high, we were more likely to stay in a relationship. So I'll just go back again. There's three factors: comparison level for alternatives, satisfaction level, and investment size. Comparison level for alternatives. If our comparison level is high, we are less likely to stay in the relationship. So there is a negative correlation there between comparison level and commitment. If our satisfaction level is high, then we are more committed, so we're more likely to stay in the relationship. So there is a positive correlation there. If investment size is high, we put a lot of effort and resources into it, then we're also more committed. So we've got a negative correlation, a positive correlation, and a positive correlation. So you always need to relate these things to how likely we are to maintain or commit to a relationship. And commitment is the key term for this theory. It's about how much we are likely to commit. So when we're evaluating it, we can look at the fact that there is a lot of meta-analysis evidence to provide support that all three of these variables have an impact on commitment. But we know that there's a problem with meta-analyses, and the main problem with meta-analyses is that the studies can all be done in slightly different ways. So the data isn't reliable because we're not being consistent between the studies about how each of the things are measured, and that can be a problem. There are also real methodological problems with measuring these variables, and we've talked about this before. The idea that it's subjective to say that there are other people out there, because there are always other people out there, so there are always comparison for alternatives, but it's whether we view these as alternatives. Satisfaction level, again, is subjective. How satisfied we are is completely based on our own opinion. And that makes it very difficult to study because we're trying to look at people's perceptions of something that is subjective, and therefore it's hard to create an objective theory surrounding subjective ideas. But cross-culturally, these variables are found, and they're also found in online relationships. So this isn't talking so much about like meeting online and then dating in real life. It's talking about people dating and being in a relationship like online with someone from maybe across the world to them. So this is good because it suggests that there is these variables do have an impact on why people maintain a relationship. And it also provides evidence of why people stay in abusive relationships. For example, if they think that their investment size is high, like they have a house with this person, they have children with this person, they are less likely to leave those bad relationships. So I hope that was helpful for you. Remember, the main things are that you relate all of this to commitment and therefore maintenance. And make sure that you've got a clear idea of whether it's a positive or a negative correlation as well. I hope that was helpful.